Welcome to a new video series, AAA or Ask Autocar Anything. Now, AAA may be new on video, but actually we've been answering your questions for over 20 years. First in the magazine, then on the website, and now, of course, on video. We get thousands of queries every month on our website from all of you asking for advice on just about anything. From what car to buy, what tires to choose, how to upgrade your lights, and much, much more. What makes AAA special is that our answers are not just the opinion of one person, but our team of experts with over 100 years of collective experience reviewing and testing cars and bikes. In our inaugural episode, I'm joined by Sergius Barretto and Gavin D'Souza. Together, we will answer some of the queries you've posted on our site. So I'm going to hand it over to Gavin to take the first question. Gavin, over to you.
Thank you, Hormazd. Well, actually, let's start by giving preference to the elderly because we've got a query from Mr. M. Ananda Rao who says, I'm a senior citizen.
So am I.
Age 65 years. I'm interested in the Maruti Wagon R. I need your meticulous analysis of the Wagon R and guidance on any other good alternatives with reasons. Sergius, Hormazd, would you like to start?
I think Wagon R springs to mind first. It's a kind of car that's easy to get in and out of, kind of natural seating height, very practical, sensible, given that it's from Maruti as well. For like a senior citizen, you want a no fuss ownership experience as well.
I said you don't want him to be running after service issues and stuff like
Correct,
that.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm assuming, since he's saying that he's a senior citizen, driving pleasure isn't really high on the radars. Probably ease and comfort.
Something easy to drive, something easy to get in and out of. I think that's very critical because you've got the right seat height, the right step-in height, ingress, egress. That's quite easy. Doors open wide enough, a pretty decent back bench as well, reasonable boot, a reasonable luggage space. So for that budget, a very good city car. But again, I think going on the highway, you would feel a bit vulnerable. So I think, not a great highway car. I'm just saying what could be a good alternative.
I think, something on the highway, something equally tall, a similar profile, so to speak, with also ease of ingress and egress, something like a Tata Punch perhaps, because I'd say, while the Wagon R is more of a city vehicle, the Tata Punch does have a bit more stability and road holding.
Right, and it's obviously built a lot more robust. Clearly, of course, the service experience, we know from, there are actually two extremes. We know that's the general reputation. Unfortunately, also the Tata Punch not super spacious at the back, not got that airy tall boy feeling. But I think Tata Punch overall, I think
it's good.
It's good highway car as well.
Yeah, even the doors, like you mentioned on the Wagon R, the doors here open 90 degrees on the Punch, so they open really wide. It makes it quite easy for anyone to get in and out of. So I think ingress, egress, it's a probably a nicer experience.
Right. But let's talk about the running costs. I think clearly fuel efficiency, which is going to be the main cost over there. I think the Wagon R more efficient for sure.
And I mean, if for what it's worth, the Wagon R also does offer two engine options, a 1 liter and a 1.2. So there's a bit of choice there. And should Mr. Ananda decide, there is also the option of an AMT, which of course the Punch offers too, but just a little bit of choice within the Maruti ecosystem. So all things considered, of the two, yes, the Wagon R does seem like the best fit. It's quite friendly. It is more of a city car owing to its tall boy design and the engine choices on offer. The Punch is a good alternative if you frequent the highway every once in a while. But as you have already shortlisted, the Wagon R seems to be a good bet for you.
Okay, so guys, I'll just read out the next question. It's from Mohammad Aftab. So he says he's planning to buy a 7-seater and my running is not very regular. Sometimes there's a long trip and sometimes I don't drive at all. In one single long trip, I may cover even 1,000 kilometers. I need good space in the third row as well. Which one should I prefer? The Mahindra XUV 7XO or the Tata Safari? I need comfort and luxury and my budget is around 35 lakh.
Yeah, I think clearly 7XO Safari absolute rivals, and this is the question we get a lot of people wanting to choose between the two. I think let's start to the third row. I think clearly that's where the Safari has the edge. Very spacious third row, one of the most spacious third rows. 7XO not that spacious, and to be honest, you had the 9S, which had the sliding middle row,
which is not there,
which is not then the 7XO, and it's obvious why it's not there. You've got the fuel tank there, which is so it requires a lot more engineering. I'm sure they'll fix that, but for now, clearly the Safari, the one to pick if the third row is very critical. But I think overall, we've driven the 7XO, and I think it's such a huge improvement over the 700, which in itself was a notch above the Safari, to be honest. Specifically the powertrain, I think that 2.2 diesel, absolute jewel of an engine, and the Safari 2-liter diesel gruff, and really not in the same league in terms of refinement and performance. I think the 7X also rides very well now with the new suspension they've done. So I don't know. I think overall 7XO a better choice, but again, if third row is important, then maybe the Safari is the one to go for.
No, I think I would agree there, because the third row in the Safari is a nice place. You've got that sliding second row. The seats at the third row really nice and comfy. You've got your dedicated AC vents at the rear. There's your USB sockets. The windows also are fairly large. You don't get that sort of hemmed in feeling. I mean, I know when my kids are put into the third row, they, sometimes they don't like it when the windows are too small. People tend to feel maybe motion sick. You can't get a view out. So that's not really such a big issue in the Safari. So I think, yeah, if third row, as you said, is important, Safari. Otherwise, as an overall package.
And also, it's not always a consideration for everyone, but it does play a part, I'm sure, is the feature set in the latest XUV 7XO is, I think, now gone a little bit ahead of the Safari. So if that matters to you, give it a consideration. But as we said, if it's all the third row.
Yeah, and I think, well, the best thing is to just try them out, and then you can be the best judge whether the third row works for you in the 7XO or not, or you prefer the space in the Safari. Okay, so I'm going to take the next question in order. It's from Mitesh Jasani, and his question is that he wants to buy an EV of about 25 to 30 lakhs. He already has a Tiago EV and Altroz petrol for family use, so already EV in the family. The car will be for daily commuting of around 80 to 100 kilometers for work purposes and outstation family trips once a month. Home and office charging are possible with a proper charging infra available. Now his choices are, and he's confused between the Harrier EV and the XEV 9e. So again, it's back to
the
same two, but in electric form.
avatar.
Yeah. So, but I think clearly the EV is for, let's say, longer trips, because he's already got
a Tiago EV for
EV,
the
yeah.
city.
So then I guess range would be quite important
Absolutely.
over there.
Yeah. And I think that's where the Mahindra has the edge on the range, the driving range.
I think at least about, as per our test, almost 100 km.
Almost 100 kilometers, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, so if range is what it is, doing a lot of long distance trip straight away, and I think range is really a deal breaker for many.
And we always like to caution you when using an EV for long distance use. It is possible, you just need to plan a little bit ahead. But yes, of course, at the end of the day, range matters. But also there are other reasons why we might pick the XEV over the Harrier EV in this particular case, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's, it feels more techy, let's say, and, when you get inside, you get this more modern feel, which a lot of EV owners want.
There's more wow factor,
exactly,
to put it plainly. The 9e has a lot more wow factor, and whether it's the shape, which that coupe shape, obviously, I think it's clicked. See a lot of that. Harrier just seems an electrified version of the regular.
It's plush and luxurious inside, but it's not really techy and oh wow, the interiors. So I suppose it depends what you like, but given that EV owners tend to want the latest and something that stands out, I think that's another reason why we lean towards the Mahindra.
And I think there's another option as well, which is the 9S, which I think is very competitively priced, got many more features and a third row. So there's value in that as well. I think the only issue really is the suspension.
It's a little soft.
It's softer. There's a little bit of that oscillation. Yeah, I mean, people have talked about it. It's something you can live with if you're not driving too fast.
And also, Hormazd, based on our feedback, actually Mahindra then did introduce that custom mode, right? Where earlier they just had sport and eco mode, and the only way to tighten up that body control was to go to sport mode. But then you had everything in sport mode, steering and engine. Now there's a custom mode, so you could keep the suspension in sport. And maybe the rest of the bits in whatever you want, maybe eco or comfort, and that takes care to some extent at least of the ride.
Absolutely, and I think again a lot of features as well. I think the tech stack again is really more in the Mahindras.
But something does have to be said in case they drive themselves for the all-wheel drive dual motor version of the Tata. In this case, I mean 300 plus horsepower. That can be quite appealing to a lot of people. So if that is a factor, do consider it. But really, given that you are planning to use it for the reasons you are, I think the range matters a little bit more.
Absolutely. So I think clearly, I think it's the Mahindras over here which have the edge on the Harrier EV. The 9e you had asked, yes, 9e for you is better than the Harrier EV, and you can also consider the 9s.
Okay, I'm going to read out the next one. It's from Harshpreet Singh. I am planning to buy the Seltos diesel automatic, but considering future bans, is it too risky to buy a diesel car in 2026? Also, is there any blending expected in diesel in the near future? I drive around 15,000 kilometers annually with a mix of city and highway usage, but mostly in the city. Please suggest whether I should buy diesel or not. Also, with petrol being blended under E27 in the future, is that a safe option? Now, this is another question that we get quite a lot, and the two of you have done extensive research, I know, on E20 as well as diesel.
Yeah. So let me take this one. I think clearly on diesel, there's been frankly a lot of fear-mongering on social media that diesel is going to disappear in the next 5 years. There are politicians also, and specifically Nitin Gadkari, who keeps on threatening that diesel is going to be banned. I think what's clear is that as we move to tighter emission norms, diesel and petrol, especially with Euro 7, their emission levels are going to be the same. There's going to be no difference at all. Even on the NOx, which is really the nasty part of diesels, which is generally higher. But with BS7, they're going to be on the same level completely. Also, I think we've already seen an understanding within governments, like, when Delhi, when the quality is really bad, the air quality is really bad, and you have this GRAP 4, it's BS6 diesels are also allowed. So clearly they've recognized that a BS6 diesel is not polluting. So if they've allowed that, then clearly future diesels which are cleaner will also be allowed. So I don't think there's going to be a problem over there. I think looking at when BS7 norms come also, it's not that difficult to meet. So I think, there's a window which manufacturer thinking until 2032, at least, diesel's not going to have any problems. The problem with diesel is that, it's losing its efficiency or the efficiency advantage because of these emission norms. So clearly, diesels are not as efficient as they used to be. But, looking at a Seltos diesel, I think the bigger issue is the DPF, which, as we know, if you don't drive the car enough, you have to regenerate the DPF, otherwise it gets clogged. And by regenerating, you have to drive it for a certain distance with the engine under load for about, let's say, at speeds of 50-60 kilometers for about half an hour, every couple of weeks. Not such a big issue if you do that, but there are issues of the DPF clogging if you don't do that. So I think now again on the subject of E27, again, what has happened right now is that the sugar lobby has produced a surplus of ethanol, and I think that is really, they are putting pressure on the government that to please increase the blends. So this is a genuine worry. Will we go to E27? My view is I don't think we'll go that fast, because I think the industry has realized that E20 is about the limit. There's been a lot of backlash also with the E20 coming in. So I don't think they will go to E27 that soon. But it's likely that in time E27 will be the base fuel. And beyond that, you will have flex fuel of E85 and onwards. So I think, a lot of worry is that what if E27 comes? Will that affect the current engines? To be honest, you speak to the manufacturers, they don't say it on the record or won't give it in writing, but off the record they do say that even our E20 engines can withstand, you know, a little bit more, go up to E20. Yeah, that's at a higher level. They just design them that way, and it doesn't cost too much to design them. So I think the bigger issue for me is the loss of efficiency. We've tested it, and fuel efficiency is a big concern. And I think going to E27 is, you know, would be a bad idea, just because there's pressure from the sugar lobby. I think one has to think of the motorists and the kind of, you know, what they lose in terms of efficiency, and also possible wear and tear, accelerated wear and tear on some of the rubber parts.
Yeah, and especially since you're not getting this higher blend any cheaper, which is
That
the
is the whole
case
problem.
in countries like, say, Brazil.
Yeah.
You can, you know, go to a higher blend and it's a cheaper fuel. But in this case, in
doesn't
India,
seem to be happening.
it's not the case. So that drop in efficiency, you know, you're paying for.
Yeah, exactly. So I think people are looking at a diesel as a kind of insurance against E27 coming, you know, which is it is quite a valid concern in that sense.
And last year, Hormazd, we saw that the data of diesel actually grew in sales, despite this, you know, sort of negativity surrounding it.
That's
diesel
right.
grew in sales, and petrol dropped.
Right, yeah.
CNG, of course, grew. EVs grew, but diesel grew. So
That's right, yeah.
you know, I think diesel's here to stay, at least for the near future.
Diesel is here to stay. I think don't be swayed by what you hear on social media and some of these experts saying that diesel is going to just disappear in the next 5 to 6 years. That I think is very unlikely to happen. And even if there are certain restrictions on diesel, or diesel is somehow banned, the existing diesels, I think they are not going to ban that in a hurry. And even this 10-year rule, I think, and I've got a feeling that as we move to, let's say, more stringent emission norms, they might even drop that rule altogether. There's already talk of that. So net, I think if you want to go for the Seltos diesel, go for it.
And Hormazd, I think you said this before, when a diesel engine meets emission norms, it is as clean as it can get. It is, if it's meeting the norms, it's good to go. So that's not the issue. I guess the issue is, as you said, efficiency does take a hit, performance does take a hit. We as drivers miss that diesel punch sometimes, and the cost goes up in meeting these new emissions norms.
Yeah.
So that's
Diesels are getting costlier and costlier. That really is the main issue, but that's going forward. But I think for now, the Seltos diesel, fairly well priced, 1.5 liter engine. It's been quite proven. Of course, you know, interestingly, the Kias do have a slight bigger issue on the DPF. So we've heard, it's all anecdotal, of course, and that's probably because, you know, Kia's let's say regen protocol is very, very stringent. They want to make sure that they're meeting or hitting the emission levels or the emission norms, you know, absolutely as perfectly as possible.
Right, guys, so I think that wraps up our inaugural episode of Ask Autocar Anything. Thank you for watching. Now, of course, this being the video format, there isn't, you know, that much of time and that many questions that we can possibly take. But we do have our website, autocarindia.com. Head there, go to the advice section and post all your queries, because we answer as many as we possibly can. We get thousands of these queries, but we are trying our best to answer all of them at the website or right here on our video YouTube channel. So once again, thank you for watching and see you on the next episode.